Hey everyone, Leo's here. Another Jumpstart Lightning episode. I have my friend Olivier here with me. We're going to talk about a lot of IoT related stuff today. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, Leo's here. Another Jumpstart Lightning episode. It's a fun Friday that we are recording this one, and I have Olivier here with me. Olivier, how are you doing, my friend?
Fantastic, Lior. I'm great. What about you?
Always awesome to talk to you, Olivier. I don't think the Jumpstart Lightning, the entire Jumpstart Lightning audience knows you, but we're going to fix that. Who you are, what is it that you do?
So I am an IoT advisor. I have my own company advising companies, trying to teach what IoT is and how to do it right. And I also do technical content. I used to be with Microsoft. I stayed with Microsoft for 17 years. Prior to Microsoft, I was a real-time embedded developer. So I have a knack about embedded IoT, all the things. And I also have a knack for cloud technologies because of the natural evolution of IoT. And I spent the last 7 years with the Azure IoT group, from inception to last year, where we were able to have like all these fantastic solutions, services, and so on. So now I'm flying on my own and still having fun with the IoT show of mine. That is a video show that I will do a shameless plug here for. If you want to learn about IoT, if you want to follow news, latest trends,
Watch it.
check it out.
Obviously, we're going to link everything in the description down below. And Olivier, I'm loving it that you're doing your jam. And I was a guest on your show a while back. We had the fun conversation, and we're going to do part 2 now on this one. And Olivier, not a lot of people know this, but when you left Microsoft, I actually joined the group that you are part of. So it was just kind of a transition. A lot of the things that I do today are things that you used to do for Microsoft. So it's kind of a nice handshake. So, Olivia, let's just kick things off. Usually Jumpstart Lightning is, I bring one of the product managers or community member, and we do a demo, and we do all this fun stuff. But today I wanted to do something a bit different with you, and have this, like I mentioned, part 2 conversation between two nerds that just want to nerd out on stuff when it comes to that. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you, Olivier, I consider you an expert in this space, and I wanted to ask you, what's the current state of the IoT industry that we are at, according, like, just kind of how you see it? I would love to, educate me here. How do you see this right now?
So it's a broad question. And I would say, in a nutshell, it's doing great. And so the main reason why I'm saying that is because I think IoT reached a level of maturity such that it is used. It is heavily used, and many industries are depending now on the ability to sense the environment, sense the machines, the equipments, the assets, extract insights from the data these machines, assets, sensors, and so on will produce to enhance businesses, right? And so there's new business models that are arising. There's AI coming up really strong that requires having lots of data generated from environment, from machines, and so on to optimize productions and so on. And so IoT is doing good because it's there. It's there, and it's there to stay. It's evolving really fast, and we'll talk about some of the aspects of that evolution. And I think it's never been a better time to be in IoT. The one thing that I would say is more on not the negative, but that counters that, is the fact that the definition of IoT is evolving as fast as the industry is going. So it's really hard to give one definition of IoT and to have one statement about how is IoT doing, right? Because it includes so many different aspects that, in my opinion, it's becoming hard. Maybe the IoT word as a buzzword will disappear. I don't know. We'll see. I will keep calling my show the IoT show, though, so that we have that banner that will still resist. But IoT is doing great, and I think is fundamental to many of the latest industry trends.
Beautiful. You said few things there that really that I can definitely relate to. I think that just kind of maybe talk about the last thing that you said, which is like the IoT as a term, right? I think it's kind of similar to cloud. There's a lot of things that are baked into this broad term. So cloud is not what it used to be. 10 years ago, right? When we said, okay, so we're just talking about the virtual machines and the infrastructure and all that, like it exploded like in ways that I think a lot of people didn't really expect that it will.
Mhm.
Few years back, I mean, obviously right now in retrospective, things the way they are. And also one thing that I wanted to, just kind of maybe comment on what you said here is that, it's the businesses that are starting to get real value out of this. I think that from my perspective, when I started working with IoT, it was really from a consumer standpoint. It was just like things that you do. I wouldn't say I would say for fun, but
Mhm.
things that you do for you mainly and your household. Nothing too dramatic about that. But when I started working with our technologies and started to see how things are evolving, I can definitely relate to what you said, right? Which is, look, businesses are starting to actually get a lot of value, and the value is in the data. Like that's really where the value is. It's the business intelligence that we're generating out of the data. So that's a super interesting thing, right?
Yep. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I would say IoT has been around for a long time. I have
Yeah.
25 years of experience in the domain of what started as embedded and became, intelligent embedded devices, and
Yeah.
then became connected devices, and evolved into the IoT, which is, it has different definitions, but definitely something that people, especially engineers, discovered through hobbyist and makers projects, but had been there in the industry for a long time already,
Yeah.
especially industrial automation. Is for that
Yeah.
automation part where humans had to step back to let machines take over some of the aspects of productions,
Yeah.
to basically do the tasks that didn't require the human brain, and were the repetitive, precise, fast tasks.
Yeah.
We did an episode with Jeff Winter. We talked about that while we were preparing for
Right.
this episode. Jeff Winter is one of the, if not the number one influencer in the industrial IoT world, talking about
Mhm.
Industry 4.0 and so on.
Yeah.
And he has very good definitions for what is IoT and industrial IoT. And I think it has been there for some time. But yes, engineers, geeks like us, have discovered more recently the joys of soldering iron and playing around with sensors. But the
Right.
applications go way beyond what we usually do, which is home automation in our projects, or the smart garden or whatever. There are
Yeah.
applications pretty much all industries out there,
Sure.
and so that's something that, as you were saying, the core of the IoT value is in the data that the sensors can produce,
Yeah.
and the other one, which is something that I start to see more present in the conversation, is the ability to have a remote control over the environment. It's not
Mm.
just about reading the data.
Right.
It's also about activating something, automating tasks and
100%.
flows that impact the environment
Yeah.
that we're in.
100%. It's before switching gears here, because there's another interesting topic that we want to cover here today. But just relate to that. I watched an episode the other day from Mark Rober. For people who don't know Mark Rober, a previous NASA engineer, a very successful YouTuber, and he's got a great channel, right? For engineers, awesome channel, because he takes all the fun and bring it to life when it comes to
Yep.
engineering. And in this episode, he was actually talking about drones, and he visit. I forgot the name of the company that he visit, but basically how drones can help with um, just in the defense industry.
Mhm.
And definitely I'm going to link that episode in the description. But he was talking about how they were talking about how you can actually use drones in order to activate those drones against other drones that can potentially cause harm. And it's a beautiful episode, and it really relates to the things that you're talking about. And there's a bunch of IoT in the details there, right? So we're going to talk about that. So highly recommend it. Olivier, one of the reasons that I reached out and we thought about doing this part two between you and I is that you made a very interesting comment on LinkedIn regarding if we're changing OT or we're changing IT.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that I'm talking about is IT OT in my day to day, and I wanted to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, totally. I actually have also an article on LinkedIn that discusses that,
Yeah.
and that I wrote last year, and is still valid today. And that's it. This interesting perspective when we talk about integration of two domains, because OT, the operational technologies, and IT, information technologies, are
Mhm.
two different domains. OT would be where things are happening on site, machines, sets, and things like that.
Mhm.
IT is the cloud, the applications, the networking, the
Yeah.
infrastructure, and so on. Businesses are in the IT world, right? When it comes to the actual, management of customers, sales, and all of that.
Mm.
OT has been living in its own silo for a long time. Automation of processes and so on. They didn't need to have anything to do with the IT part.
Mhm.
IT was receiving information, like such as, we have that many devices or that many products that have been produced. That's it.
Mhm.
Didn't need more. But with the arrival of new set of technologies in the world of IT, especially AI, that is able to analyze a huge amount of data to extract valuable insights and start doing predictions
Mhm.
on outcomes, well, we started having the need to bring in the OT infrastructure and its data into the IT world. As in, I want to know where my, there's been, to give you a good example,
Mhm.
if I have a defect in one of my products, I can see through my customer relationship tools that
Mhm.
there is complaints, that there is returns, and so on. And it's super hard if you don't have data about when, where devices, products,
Right.
were produced. Then it's super hard to track down why we have this defect,
That
right? And it
correlation,
takes,
right? That
yeah, and
correlation.
it takes a long time to go and scrutinize and look at Excel spreadsheets to try and understand that.
Mhm.
AI and models are now able to analyze more of that data and automate the extraction of these insights. So that means that there is useful information that lies in factory floors, in the servers down there, that have been captured, never used. There's historians that are huge of decades of production that
Mhm.
have never been used because they're not humanly manageable.
Right.
And so now there's been that tendency to say, hey, I need to go into that historian data. And oh, by the way, why not getting into the real-time data as well from my production line and so on?
Right.
And so we've seen that need to bring OT into the IT world. But there's been a big resistance from
Mhm.
the IT pro in particular, which is, hey, you're bringing that unsecure, weird set of things into my network, and I'm supposed to just trust it and just, and then suddenly you're going to inundate me with tons of data. That what is that temperature information? I don't care. What is
Right.
that vibration information? I don't care. And so we've seen a big resistance, security
Yeah.
reasons, infrastructure and resources reasons, and so on.
It's the, it's
But
the
but
unknown.
the
It's the unknown.
Yeah, but the business need is here. And so that means that, everything is driven by business. If there's a value and that there's something that will bring more business, transform your business,
Mhm.
accelerate your incomes and so on, you will do it. And so what's going on is that these IT technologies, AI, storage and so on, are starting to, because of that resistance to bring OT into the IT world, to me, they're starting to get into the edge, to get on premises. We're starting to see AI executed down there. We're starting to see an integration that instead of working, hey, OT is not part of the IT story, we're seeing the IT technologies, coming to the OT
Yeah.
world and enriching it and establishing that glue between these two domains that are still different.
Yeah.
That the people evolving in each of them are different type of engineers, different type of people with different type of focus and interest. But these IT technologies, these more modern ways of doing things, are
Mhm.
starting to cripple down to the OT world. We're starting to
Yeah.
see, Kubernetes running on site, on factory
Right.
floor. We're starting to see these like rich technologies that have been developed for cloud, for other domains, being useful in the OT world. And so we're seeing an evolution of how that integration, of how this this like mix of these two domains is happening, and that's a fascinating thing to look at, because
Yeah.
it's enriching both sides, and things that we were convinced in the embedded devices world were impossible are becoming possible thanks to these new technologies. And these
Yeah.
new technologies that were evolving in a domain where you have infinite resources, infinite storage, and CPUs going bigger and so on, are starting to realize, hey, wait a second, actually, we could optimize that model. We could change that technology so that it works on something smaller. And then suddenly you realize that, hey, wait a second, I'm optimizing my process. I don't have to upload all the data to do like post analytics, whatnot. I'm way more efficient, and I'm getting real-time insights, so I can immediately react to what's going on there and enhance my business.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're seeing these things happening live, and this is fascinating. I really love it.
Yeah, a lot of interesting points you're bringing up. I'll give you a very fun analogy here, or an anecdote to what you said regarding this historical data that is just there. For the viewers that are familiar with Seinfeld, I'll give you a Seinfeld analogy here. You never thought that you're going to hear me saying, like, giving you an analogy from Seinfeld on industrial IoT, right? But here we go. So, I remember there was this episode that Jerry actually got, I think it was like $100 check from his grandmother. And he's been getting that every year for his birthday, but he never opened, those checks. Like, he never cashed those out, right? And then he found those after years. He actually found those, right? And he went and basically he cashed those out. He went to the bank and he he got, like, I don't know, like $3,000 or something like that out of all these years, right? And it made me think about this, because this is like unused cash, right? That is just sitting there, almost like the data that you are referring to. The only difference here is that he got a phone call from his grandmother. It was like, "How come you were taking my money?" or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But that was kind of funny. And I thought about this when you were describing this historical data that is just sitting there, unused, unutilized. So there's definitely that. And another thing that I wanted to to just kind of comment on what you said, and I shared this with you before the episode, is that when I'm thinking about OT and when I'm thinking about IT, it's almost like looking on two universes that are not designed to gel. Because you have all these, I want to say, like, it's systems that does not have IT mindset in them, right? And you have IT, which, like you mentioned, it's things that been there for years, right? You have all these technologies, but a pump, a fryer, a sensor, that was never part of the jargon for this universe, right?
Yep.
And it's very interesting to see how it's coming together. It's not jelloed yet. We're not there yet, but you definitely start seeing those connected tissues coming from those two sides of the game.
Agree. I think it's a matter of different cultures. The way these two domains have evolved in parallel has been based on their actual day-to-day needs and the context that we're evolving in. So for example, software in the embedded industry, was constrained always, which is great. Like, you need to minimize the BOM. You're producing millions of this device. Every cent on the bill of material for your main electronics, you will take it back. And so you will make compromise. You will say, hey, I will minimize the capacity in RAM, for example, or in virtual memory there. I will not even have actual physical memory, or I will go for that cheaper sensor. And then, because you have limited resources, you're constrained in terms of what kind of software you can use, what kind of language you can run. And so it has evolved in that context, while the world of apps and so on discovered the cloud and different languages and higher level languages and less care for resources. Like, it's stupid how powerful our laptops are these days. I mean, if you compare it to 5 years, 10 years ago, why do we need that much power coming from the embedded world? I'm just like, most of it is wasted because developers in that world have been used to not have limits, right?
Yeah.
But not the collapse, but the glue between these two worlds are starting to, from my perspective, bring some interesting aspects in both directions, right? You start seeing more modern development tools and technologies in the world of operations. We mentioned Kubernetes, Azure IoT operations is a good example of how these technologies that were designed for the cloud find the utility down there on the edge in the operations world, but vice versa. We're seeing as well that some of the practices coming from the embedded world are starting to influence some of the ways technology developed.
Especially in device security, I see that a lot. Like especially when you talk about OPC and all of that. When you talk about device security, you can start seeing how a lot of these elements are coming to the IT space, not necessarily in the implementation, but in the mindset.
Yes,
and that's a very important.
Exactly, and as a matter of fact, it's like security, not just device security, because now you're integrating the devices, the machines, you're integrating them into your application, right? You want to know in real time what's going on down there, because there's an interest for your operators, but also for whoever is the customer using these machines and so on. And so that means that now that becomes your problem as an IT pro to secure that network of devices. And so now you need to react as if they are part of that story. And as a matter of fact, it then will allow you to optimize and make your tools better to secure the rest, And so that's something that I think, is a great example. And we're seeing also, some languages, I'm thinking about Rust. That's an interesting language where
we talked about it.
Yeah. And so Rust is something that is a modern development language, that has been influenced by a more ancient, I would say, robust, lower level languages like C and C++, right? And so that is used in the embedded world because the embedded world would not allow you to run bigger things, right? Higher level of abstractions and so on. We're seeing that changing as well. But it goes both ways, where software becomes, and languages are becoming better, for developing applications, more secure and so on, based on an influence coming from the OT world. So I think it's once again fascinating. We're geeking out once again, but that's great to see.
That's why I wanted to have you, and just for us to nerd on this. I remember we talked about the notion of having a Fryer as an Azure resource. We thought of that.
And that's interesting. I'm actually working with my customers on some projects. One is around medical devices, and for people in that domain, they're focused on the device and like connecting it already is something super new, and now you're starting talking about cloud, and that will be seen as an Azure resource. It's just like, what are you talking about? But then suddenly you explain how then that resource becomes something you can integrate into your workflows.
Slowly and surely.
Asset tracking, all these applications now are made easier. And by the way, that device becoming an Azure resource, having an identity in the cloud, for a cloud developer now is familiar. It's not just that weird thing with a weird protocol that I'm going to talk to that I don't understand the format of the data that it's sending me and so on. It's like, oh, wait a second. It's an Azure resource. I know how to deal with it, right? And I want to push an update to it. No problem. I use my usual, DevOps pipeline, and I can push an update to that software. So it's no longer that weird protocol I need to send with a weird way of doing a device update or application update. These worlds are starting to be better mixed and matched. And to me, that's for the. We're not there yet, though, right? So I want to make sure that people are. There's one thing which is fascinating, and I spent a long time at Microsoft. I got the chance to work on things that are like 5 to 10 years out, and I think it's been over the last year a reality check for me, in a positive way, that what companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and so on are working on, the services that are created, developed, and so on. These are way ahead of what the industry needs today, especially in the OT world. but they're having a positive impact, which is it's accelerating innovation in these domains. Right? Bringing these new technologies really accelerates how domains like automotive, industrial automation, agriculture are evolving, because these are domains that used to evolve really slow. And a perfect example of that is Tesla. Tesla cars, their evolution has been driven by software. One of the things that Tesla is really good at is software update, and the ability of having functionality driven by software.
Right.
They're not so good with the cars themselves. They're getting better, but from my perspective, the mechanics and so on, they're not as good as their competitors we've been doing cars for decades, if not centuries. And on the other hand, these guys don't know how to do software. So software sucks on these other cars. But they're getting together, and we're seeing a cycle of development in automotive that has been faster than ever on both sides, because both sides have to catch up. And so I think this merge, this getting closer of OT and IT is actually accelerating innovation
100%.
like at a pace that is unbelievable.
I agree. Olivier, I knew this was going to be a fun conversation. 20-something minutes flew by. I wanted to say thank you. Just one last thing for people: how can they find you?
They just search online for me. LinkedIn link down there, where you can reach out to me and the IoT show. We'll have a link down there as well if you want to stay up to date on news links. I started doing shorts as well, which are clips from the IoT show. So if you don't want to stay for a full 15 to 30 minutes conversation about IoT, go check out the shorts on YouTube, and I do TikTok as well. So we'll see if it lasts very long. But
I'm loving it. Thank you so much, Olivier, for joining me today for this awesome and fun conversation. For the Jumpstart Lightning viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe for more fun conversations like I just had with Olivier. Olivier, thank you so much, and we're going to see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.